Hello everyone, and welcome. I am so excited today to talk about repositories. Yay! Because everybody loves repositories, don't they? So I was really excited when Survicate reached out to me to talk a little bit about Research Hub. And the reason behind that is because repositories and creating them are such a pain point still to this day. If you think about way back when I was creating my own repositories, and now we have AI to try and help us create repositories. We have plenty of tools to look into, and I'm really excited to dive into Research Hub in particular, because I think what they do really well is address pain points from a researcher's perspective when it comes to creating these repositories, and they also make it so much more accessible for our stakeholders. So it's really from a user research perspective, which I really appreciate as a user researcher. So repositories, the appeal behind them is obvious. We're putting everything in there. People are coming, people are searching. They're no longer asking us. They're going in, they're self-serving, and they're using it to find evidence for features or things that are going on the roadmap or things that are in the backlog that they need more information on. They're using it to find gaps in the product, pain points, to innovate, and all this fantastic stuff. That's the dream, right, of repositories, of what we've been sold. Oftentimes it doesn't always look like that. And especially right now in the day of AI, I get a lot of questions of, can I use Claude as a repository? Can I use like ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever as a repository? And although in a way, yes, you can use it for synthesis and you can try and finagle it as a repository, the problem with these more general LLMs is that they don't have this user research lens. They have things like hallucinations, terrible context windows. So you have this like lost in the middle vibe where if you give it a bunch of stuff, it will kind of ignore all the stuff in the middle. Like it reads the beginning, it reads the end, and assumes the middle or skips it completely. Whereas tools like Research Hub, what they do is they chunk the data and organize it in a way for the AI to read it properly and actually, look into it and utilize it throughout the entire project. So it's not just picking and choosing what it's looking at the entirety of the data set. And also, when you're looking at tools that are more research oriented, what's happening is, with this tool in particular, you can give it like a business context, you can give it stakeholder context. And so it's not going to be as broad and general as something like Claude or ChatGPT. It's going to be more sourced and be able to link back to the actual data that it's pulling from, which from what I have used and understand is really helpful, because when you are just synthesizing something more broadly with some of these LLMs, what can happen is those hallucinations or things will get pulled and it's not quite right, and you're doing a lot of reworking and tweaking, whereas this is just built for the purpose of synthesizing research and creating reports and creating, a wonderful repository where people can actually ask data-driven questions and get back reliable data-driven resources. So I'm really excited to dive in, and I can't wait to show you what we're going to work on today. So what you see here is a finished report. I will go back and I will showcase how you do this step by step so that you can see, in the weeds of how you actually create something like this. But I did want to showcase this report at the end just so that you can see it before we go through it, so that you can visualize what the output will look like. So if you can see here, we have so I'm a huge visual person. I love creating visualizations based off my research. Well, sorry, let me say that again. I hate creating visualizations of my user research because I'm not good at creating charts. I'm not fantastic at Excel. I'm not great at drawing, at creating things like visuals like that. So I hate doing it, but I know how important it is, and I love having them. So from my standpoint, to be able to include charts, and we'll go through a little bit of how to actually go about doing that, but being able to include charts and visualizations in my report without me spending like the next 15 hours in Excel trying to figure out how to create a chart, gold. So what I love about this is we have this report here. We have a breakdown of this report is about accessibility issues and barriers, which very, very awesome to be looking into and very important to be looking into, especially now where a lot of things are AI generated and AI doesn't follow accessibility rules very well. So super important here. And I love that we can start off with a visualization, because that is like one of the best ways to start off with, like, boom, okay, here's a visualization of what happened. And I love that it's interactive, you know, so you're going through and you are understanding a little bit about what these mean. So positive, mixed, negative, neutral, fantastic. And you can kind of go in and understand, okay, well, this is what the negativity is about, just at like a very high level. And I'm always a huge fan of high level, starting high level and then drilling down, because people who are looking at this, a lot of them just want to stay in the high level. And then you go through and you see there's no, you know, preamble. We always have preambles in research reports where we're like, okay, well, welcome to our study. This is the methodology, and, you know, this is who we recruited, and all of that stuff is important. However, a lot of it can go at the end, because when you're thinking about your audience and the entire point of a research report, it's to help somebody make a decision and move forward something, whether that is making a decision on what to do, how to do it, de-risking a decision, the value of a decision, whatever it is, it's moving someone forward. And unfortunately, talking about the methodology is not moving people forward. So I love that here there's not really that preamble. What we have here is the most important finding. Bam, straight away. Systematic failure of basic interaction patterns. Okay, that sounds like a big deal. Go through and we're able to see here, right here, you're able to see these citations, which I always appreciate. So something that I always missed in the more like old school days of repositories and reports is being able to like put in these little citations where people can actually see evidence of where this came from. So I really, really appreciate that. And so if we go down, we see these different barrier types, the number of mentions, which is awesome, this spread, and why it actually matters. So again, when we're looking at this, like, this is really high level, and it's absolutely fantastic to be able to just see this, go through it, and be like, okay, awesome. Like, we have this like snapshot of like the problem, the number of mentions, which every stakeholder is asking us that, and why it actually matters, and where we found it from. So that is fantastic. And I'll get to like the where we found it from in a second, because that's something else that I really appreciate about tools like Research Hub, is like that holistic view of our data. So when we go through, we start to, you know, go down and distill into the details, which I really, really appreciate. So we're going more into the actual details. So you'll see here, you know, we have this first barrier. So the screen reader and assistive technology gaps is like the widest spread barrier here. And it then breaks down to things that are like unusable without a mouse. Pretty important. What the product debt might be. And then this summary. So the pattern is product wide. So you see this across the different areas of the product. And I really, really appreciate that, because again, if we're looking to kind of help people identify what is most important, they need to be able to see like tangibly, like, oh wow, this does impact a lot of different places in our product. And it's like kind of everywhere, and it's affecting a lot of people. So we get that question that we always get is like, well, does this really matter? And like, how much is this actually affecting users? And having this kind of visualization of, great, here's the product area that it's impacting, and there's a lot here, and here are the main barriers and the affected users. Like, that is fantastic. And then we go down into this breakdown for prioritization, which I always appreciate, because the last thing that we want to do is just info dump on our stakeholders and not help them with where we think the next steps should come from. So whenever there's this prioritization, it's like, cool, all right, here's where we start and here's why we start. So, you know, we have the critical, high, medium, low, trivial. We have the focus of what needs to be done and why it's impactful to do that now. So we see highest frequency and affects many surfaces. So it affects across the product all at once, right? And then we see like blocking core daily work. Again, like, it just explains why this is so important. So I really appreciate this, because it just breaks it down into like, okay, you know, we can really do things with this. And there's a lot that we can communicate at both a high level visually, and also enable people to take action more easily. So we don't need to fill in, you know, every single detail and every single finding that an insight that we have. I know that it's a little bit hard to, because I really appreciate doing that. But, you know, this just showcases how we can get to that decision really quickly, and we can help people move forward through that decision, which is, from my standpoint, really important. Now let's go through how this actually gets built. So you'll see here the new research project. We are going to do a one-time analysis for this particular walkthrough, because we want like immediate answers from existing feedback. So it's like, what is the feedback that we have? Let's get information from that. What I do like is this option though for continuous monitoring. So if you're trying to track something over time, you can get notified when new signals emerge or new feedback comes in on that particular topic that you're interested in. So for us as researchers, continuous feedback is actually really important, and we talk a lot about continuous discovery and things like that. So I think continuous monitoring on like a regular basis on particular topics that are tricky for our stakeholders, or particular topics that our stakeholders might want to understand more over time, this is a really great option for us to continue to build on that feedback and get notified when those new feedback issues come out in the data. But we are going to go into, for right now, the one-time analysis. So which feedback sources do you want to analyze? For this particular one, we are going to go with all feedback or selected feedback. Let's do selected feedback. Actually, I want to just go back really quickly. So all feedback, analyze all available feedback sources, get comprehensive insights from your entire feedback ecosystem. So what's really cool about this, the all feedback, analyzing all those feedback sources and getting all those insights, I really appreciate, because as a researcher, usually it's really difficult to keep track of where all the feedback's coming in. I mean, I remember doing so much manual work, being like, okay, I'm going to pull from customer support, I'm going to pull from these tickets, I'm going to pull from account management, I'm going to pull from reviews, I'm going to pull from these random emails that we get, you know? And so I think that coming into that like holistic understanding of your data set, super interesting. But we are going to go with selected feedback for right now. And then we can look at how far we go back, which is fantastic. So are we looking really for like the last month? We also have quarterly insights, half year, and 1 year. Or you can go into a custom date range, which is also really quite cool. So really looking at how far back we want to analyze our data from. So do we want things that are only recent, or are we looking for more like evergreen information? So this is great for, okay, our product has changed and we're doing new tests on it. More recent feedback is more important, or we're doing more discovery-based research and we need things that are from a while back to understand people's mental models. Cool. So what I really, really like about this is now we have all of the different types of feedback that we can put in. So we have surveys, we have integrations, we have different files and transcripts. I like that these are kind of differentiated so that you're not just looking at like one long list. So I do really quite appreciate that. And I appreciate that you can like pick and choose, especially if we're thinking about that time period of like 6 months. You can, obviously maybe not 6 months of absolutely everything, but you can pick and choose based on what you're looking for and the kind of topic that you're looking for. Another thing that I also wanted to point out here is the integration. So again, holistic understanding of your of your product team, of your product, of all the feedback that you're getting across different departments. I mean, this is crucial. Like, it is amazing to be able to, connect to Intercom and not have to manually go through and, understand, pull in Intercom separately and analyze all that separately. You can analyze all these things in like one place, which I, again, really, really, really appreciate, because it just makes our data stronger. Like, as someone who does a lot of qualitative research, triangulation is one of the most important things that we can lean on, especially right now. So we are able to pull in all of these different sources so that we can triangulate the insights and provide, one, a more holistic picture for our stakeholders, and two, we talk about de-risking and making decisions. We can give them, more information to make their decision even better. So let's go through and do turn reasons and collect feature requests. Give the flowy feedback as well. And then let's do screen viewer and motor visual. Let's see. And then we see like the total feedback points, 331. That's insane. So what's really cool, again, is just like pulling in all of those data points. So awesome. Let's go through here. Filter feedback. So all feedback will currently be analyzed. I like this. You can kind of sit with that. But what you could do is you could add like different filters here. So feedback content or feedback attribute, so you could say, if you only want people who are, on Mac, let's say, or if you only want people who are on like a desktop versus mobile, if you want people who are at, a certain company size or with certain attributes, that's always very helpful. Sometimes I like to filter out, analyze feedback where sentiment does not equal positive. So I like to take out the positive stuff because I'm not very nice. Oh dear. So now here we go with, what is this project about? So describe the goals of this project to help guide the analysis. Now you have here inspiration, which I really, really appreciate. And then there's like use cases to start with. So a researcher, you have stuff for a product manager, marketer, customer success manager. I think that that's really helpful. So if you're not feeling particularly inspired, you can go ahead and go in here and say, okay, like, is there anything in here that would help me at least like just get started? So like a voice of the customer weekly digest, let's say. So I think that is really helpful. If we kind of have this, and if we just go to the voice of the customer, we have, this project synthesizes feedback from all of these sources and give the research team a reliable weekly cadence of what people are saying. And then, as you can see here, you have research objectives and questions, themes and patterns to look for. insights to uncover how findings will be used. Really, really awesome, especially if you're like, okay, like I'm not 100% sure of like exactly what I want to do. These are really great with coming up with different ideas in terms of like, okay, cool, like this is something that we can actually action on now. And I think that what is like helpful with that is like, okay, this gives us that starting point so that we're not like sitting at a blank slate. So I've just gone ahead and put in some of this project definition right here. And again, like this just makes it so that, you know, when you're creating a report, you are making it really clear what the entire point is. So oftentimes, you know, we'll just, something that I used to teach a lot with people who were making reports, and when I was coaching researchers, is a lot of them would get stuck on this like report writing. And I was like, if you're getting stuck on report writing and how to structure your report and what to include in your report, it means that you don't know how you want the report to be used. And when we don't know how we want the report to be used, then what happens is we create something generic rather than for our actual audience. And then again, when we put out those generic reports, stakeholders kind of look after them and look over them and ignore them or skip them or whatever. They don't listen to anything. And so what this helps you with is fully articulating what the point of this project is and what the point of the report is, so that it is catered to the person or the people who are going to be reading the output. So that way the report is by default useful. So if you're able to articulate that, then that is fantastic, because then you can make sure that the report is as catered to your audience as possible, so that again they can go through and make the decisions that they need to make. So we saw the inspire me. I've put this in. So now let's go ahead and run this research. So it just gives us an overview here, and then this just takes a little bit of time. It should not take that long, but just in the interest of time, I'm going to pause us and we will be right back. Awesome. So here we are back at our report. So that took just about like 5 minutes to generate, which is fantastic. I just hopped back. So this was the report that we had here. So this is what it generated, which is fantastic. And I just love the citations and the ability to just like edit everything here, right? So what we have here are the different themes. So the major themes that we have, the barrier types, which is essentially what we were looking at, is like, what are the exact barriers across the feedback that we received. So imagine if we wanted to go ahead and create a chart from something like this. So the visualizations being really important. We see the different insights. So we have AI discovered insights, which is very awesome and important. And I love that you can just literally bin these if they don't feel good for you. So again, keeping us in control. You can also add an insight very easily instead of just going with AI discovered ones. I also really like the resolved insights, because I think that that's like really interesting to be able to look at what's been resolved from your research, like talk about like impact and like being able to like showcase, okay, like I created this research report and look at all the things that got resolved from it. Like that is pretty cool. So we want to track some insights, and I tracked 2 in particular. So the major keyboard and screen reader accessibility gaps, and then cancellation reasons, so usability, missing features, and pricing. So we can go over to the dashboard and create our first chart. So looking at the unreported accessibility barriers, right? So really looking at those. looking at cancellation reasons, so usability, missing features and pricing, major keyboard and screen reader gaps, so looking at the feedback count here, which is awesome. And you can do like different types of charts as well, so that makes it really easy to go ahead and kind of like, again, like understand, okay, like what are we looking at. And you can also like break down by sentiment, so again, looking at like what's negative, neutral, or mixed. And you can even do a pie chart for that. But yeah, looking at we see a lot of obviously negativity for cancellation reasons. So it's super easy to then go ahead, and we're gonna save this widget. It's super easy to go ahead and then like put this like into an actual report. So again, it's created this for us, and then we could go in here and add the chart, just kind of like you would in Notion. Right, so we have that. It's not really all cancellation. It's like kind of like accessibility barriers I should have put instead of cancellation, but that's just how you can go ahead and do that. You could also like pop into the research assistant and like say, you know, what are the most important barriers the product team should focus on like immediately. Great, cool. And then this will pull from the data, which is again what I really appreciate, because a lot of times we would have to like manually dig through data in order to find this information, and stakeholders come to us asking this, and so it's nice to be able to surface this really easily, you know. And so again, it's going through and saying, okay, these are like the 3 barriers that stand out as fixed now priorities. And again, we're looking and we're seeing the supporting feedback, right? So we have all of this feedback that's going and showing us, okay, this is the actual data that went into this particular like finding and insight, so that we can actually go ahead and utilize this. And I also like that it's like I can create a 30, 60, 90-day plan, right? Which is fantastic too. So it's talking to the audience in that way of like, okay, let me make this as easy as possible in terms of like being able to make that decision or move these decisions forward. So that's something that I really, really appreciate. And again, like this is all fully customizable. You can go ahead and write in here. You can like take things out. So if something's not feeling right, like here we can say, let's do this here. And you can change like the headings and everything like that. So you can go ahead and edit. You can also edit with AI too, if you're looking to do that, if that might be faster for you. Or you can, again, just edit it on your own. And so what we do now is go ahead and approve. And I find that this is like the most important part, is that we're approving this. So like the control still stays with us. It's not going like, we're not just like creating this and it's not being like approved. Like we are still in that end space where it's like we are the ones that are approving that this feels okay. You know, it's not just going forward and getting created for us and we have like no say. So again, really relying on like, okay, like this is something that we're okay with, right? So yeah, that's kind of the overview of how this works. And I think that just seeing this and being able to utilize this again, it's not about like replacing us as researchers, but it's allowing us to, as researchers, like show our superpower of like, we can now pull from all of these different places and synthesize all of this research in a faster and more efficient way, but we are still like involved in across that entire process. Like we are making those choices of the scope, where to pull things through, where to pull things from, what kind of sources we are interested in, like what is the topic, what is the project description. You know, we are coaching the AI and giving it the context that it needs to create something that is, huge, and that also helps us again with showcasing that holistic picture to our stakeholders and enabling them to make those decisions more confidently and more quickly, so that then again we can go back and be like, here's the value that we gave to our stakeholders. We brought up these different insights, and out of 10 of the insights that we brought up, 6 of them have been resolved because we were able to do this so quickly, still within our control, and highlight the most important information for our stakeholders so that they could go and take that action. And I think that as a researcher is the most important thing that we can do. And we can also call out, like, because we can now take in all of this information and have this more holistic view, it's like, okay, so what are the things that we could actually like innovate on? What are the things that we didn't even have time to think about because we were like bogged down with trying to, bring in, okay, here's all this data from Intercom and Zendesk, and then all these emails that my account manager is forwarding me, right? Like, we didn't have time with all of that data. And now with this, we have time to be like, okay, so where's the innovation? Where's the like big strategy? Where's the future going? Where should like the business strategize in terms of how they could best serve their users, thus also serving the business? So for me, like, that feels really helpful, and I'm really appreciative of tools like this, because not only does it allow for that, but it keeps us like very much grounded in the entire process. So from my side, and also, it's a research focused tool, like it's a researcher focused tool. It's not like leaving researchers behind. It is, that researcher lens, and it's created out of trying to alleviate our pain points, which, I mean, I always appreciate when people alleviate a good pain point for me. So yeah, I think that from my side, like, this does allow for us to share information with stakeholders in a way that they will actually read it, not only read it, but respond to it and take action. And then that showcases our impact and our value. So thank you so much for listening. I really, really appreciate it. Survicate is doing an offer right now. So the first project is on them, which is really cool. So it's free to try. I think you get 5,000 data points that included, which is amazing. I mean, we looked at the one here, which had, I think it was 331 that I had created. So that is super helpful. I can imagine that would incorporate a lot of data, which is really, really awesome to, again, bring that big picture for our stakeholders and really help them with making that decision and showing our value. So thank you again so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you soon.